Good morning. Welcome. This is Angela Coulter, your consciousness transformation guide and regenerative Trinity Energy Progression, bringing you this week's Living the Shift. So we've been going through this huge period, and I don't even know when it started. I couldn't even say the last several months. I don't know if I could say more than the past year, because many I know have been going through massive changes in their lives for the past 5 years and more. And it's been a consistent change, right? So, there's all this stuff, and we have all of this effort and energy about how to get through change, like what to do and how to embrace letting go, right? It's like letting go of our old self, letting go of our old habits. And so we have all these things and all these practices, and we talk about, I'm pulling up my comments here on my phone because I can't see them on the thing. So here we go. Good morning, Anna. Here we go. So we go through all this stuff, and we have so much out there right now, which is great. It's fabulous because we are letting go of a ton of stuff, a ton of history, things that we've carried forward. And so energetically, when you work with this, we tend to see it in this way of anything that's not this present moment is something we're carrying forward with us. And we've done it for lifetimes, for many generations, for timelines, for all kinds of stuff. And we carry this stuff in ourselves, and we bring forward history, and we repeat it because we bring forward history and we don't let it go, right? So that's the funny thing is everybody says, oh, well, we repeat history if we don't know it, right? But it's like, well, how about if we resolve it and move forward from it, with love and gratitude for what it served us. So we go through all that, and I can talk volumes and volumes on that kind of stuff. But what's really coming up that's a new paradigm, a new challenge that many are having is they don't know who to be once the changes have happened, right? So it's like, yeah, we've done all this conscious changing. We've let go of a lot of things. We've let go of a lot of patterns, habits. We let go of things that have been embedded in us as roles. And that in itself is monumental because it helps us not only individually, but it helps us collectively. But when we do that, key is then moving forward and who to be now and how to be now. I just came back a couple weeks ago from England and had held a retreat in Glastonbury, which is for anybody who doesn't know, is a huge, it's considered by some as the heart chakra of the earth, by some others as the third eye chakra. It doesn't even matter. It is an incredibly high vibrational place. Very, very wholeness centered, right? And when we were there, we had some really interesting experiences as a group. And so here's the thing. When I talk about the stuff that we experience as a group, it's not individual to the group that went. It's actually something collective that we're doing outside of space and time. It's just that when we get there, we get there. And some of us are having to go physically, some of us are not. But outside of space and time, it doesn't matter whether it was this week or 6 months ago or 2 years ago, because it's all the same kind of energy once we accept it. So what we were experiencing was this really interesting thing. We kept on hearing, and the more I talked to everybody, the more I realized we were all having the same experience. In the retreat house that I had rented, so we took up the whole house, I kept on walking into rooms or being like walking into rooms, hearing laughing of our group, knowing it was our group, hearing laughing and talking, and I'd walk into a room and there's nobody there. And I'm like, that's so weird. It's like I'm hearing an echo, right, of us. And it even got to a point, it was really funny. So a couple of us slept out in the yurt outside of the house because we sort of overran the whole house. It was cool. And I had a whole building that was a bathroom. And so I was staying in the yurt. And one night I'd gone to the bathroom in the middle of the night, went up there, came back, and there's a motion sensor light out that would outside of the yurt so that you can see going to the bathroom. So I'd come back in. It was maybe 2:30 in the morning. I got back into bed, And I'm laying there, and all of a sudden I heard my flip-flops leaving the bathroom and coming down the stairs into the yurt. And the motion sensor light went back on. And then the footsteps stopped in the doorway. And I thought, that is so funny. And actually, my friend, Sarah Avignoni, who was in there with me, in the yurt with me, she heard it too, which I thought was hysterical. So we had like stuff like that going on constantly. All of us were hearing that kind of stuff. So when I tuned in, we were doing work together. I got very clearly that we had come to the end of what we used to consider the main timeline of this evolution that we've been living, right? The shift that we've been living. And for years now, all these other parallel timelines have been collapsing into the main one. So I'm getting a little woo-woo here, but hold on, I'll get to the point in a minute. I'm just giving you a little bit of background. So we got into this okay, here's the main timeline. We're collapsing all these other timelines into this one, parallel timelines. And so then what I understood was we had reached the end of what we had agreed to be that timeline collectively. And so we'd also started another one that was sort of overlaying. So it was like the end of one and the beginning of another that was sort of like causing friction because they were like really close together, but not quite assimilated to continue. So we did some work on that to allow that and whatever. So anyhow, so the whole thing was, it's time to let that old timeline go. We completed so much, and kudos to all of us. And it's like, okay, so we learned all these lessons. We created all these things that were beautiful and amazing and saturated, as much as there, many were painful and fearsome and all kind of stuff. And so really how we experienced it was, okay, it was almost like a handing a baton of one part of our consciousness to another part of our consciousness that was coming in to be something else in a new way, in a new form, in a new timeline. I don't even like calling it a timeline because time doesn't really exist as I understand it. So in a new creation, but like our minds want to, manage it through the creation of time. So we can call it a new timeline, a new creation. Collectively, as not just Earth, but multiple dimensions of Earth, and beyond that, throughout the multiverse. Okay, so that's all the woo-woo stuff. So we get to that place, and it sounds great, right? We're like having, it's a celebration, all kinds of love and happiness and gratitude. And then the second thing, excuse me, the second thing that came in was a little bit of fear, a little bit of anxiety, and it was a little bit displaced, and we're like, a little bit of friction. And at the end of the week, it sort of built up. So at the end of the week, we got to this point where one of us had a massive meltdown, and this was very actually good and productive, because of something that had been pushed down and pushed down and pushed down about moving forward and really leaving. And this is somebody going through a massive change in their life, leaving this up behind. I don't know who to be. I don't know what to do. I don't know what to do now. And maybe I don't want to let it all go. And it's like, but it's too late. It's like we're standing at the shore and watching it float away. So the key is to remember, number one, we committed collectively, not just the group of us that were there, but all of us, to do this. And we're making this whole new creation, even if we don't remember what that is yet. And things feel different. We're being pushed to let go of things and do things differently than we've ever done them before. So the key that I keep on getting, and I have so many people who call me, or I've been having conversations or PMs or emails or texts, this has been this pervasive energy of realization going on in the past. I would even say, like, if we want to look at it in time, past several years, but it's really ramping up now. And what that's about has to do with, well, who am I now? If I let go of everything that I built on about myself in this old timeline or old paradigm, even if you don't have a conscious understanding of what that is, a lot of us are going through very 3D things in our lives that are really changing the course of our life, right? So we're moving to new places, we're leaving relationships we've been in for a very long time, or our relationships are changing drastically. We're leaving our careers. We're changing what we do. We're changing what we say or how we feel because we're coming to this new place of realization and remembrance. So there's a new sort of crisis that comes along with that in many cases of who am I? Because the mind is still trying to grasp onto the things that are starting to float away. And unfortunately, that becomes a distraction because you're like, oh, no, I'm trying to collect the stuff that's floating away in the water. I sort of see you standing at this like edge of something and things are starting to float away and you're trying to keep that together. Good morning, Ann. And so, but it's floating away because it doesn't serve us anymore. It's not who we are to be right now. Okay. So when we take out the dependence on time, right, we get to this place of knowing that every moment is just this is what exists right now. So everything exists simultaneously, but where I am right now is all there is right now. Right. And so when we start to really live in presence, that's what it's about. And, we talk about presence and being present and stuff like that. Part of it is being very saturated in this moment and letting myself be, honoring myself as divine and letting myself be everything and the potential of all I can be right now. And without it, like leaving myself free of the tethers of all the roles that I've held in the past and letting it be my choice in every moment. So do I choose this? Do I choose this role? Do I choose this? And is it coming from a place of love and self-fulfillment and not from a place of need and proving myself or needing to have others value me? Is it coming from this place of I am expressing myself and emanating my wholeness, or is it, I'm doing something because it'll make me feel good because others are because I'm helping others and others like think I'm good because I'm helping them. I mean, these are not even conscious thoughts, right? These are things that are so deeply embedded because of what we taught ourselves and taught each other and convinced ourselves in so many respects. So what's happening is all these tethers are being cut, like so many at once. And when you do that, like all of a sudden the ego balks and says, what is going on? Like, I don't know who I am. Who am I? If I'm not all these things that I was yesterday or 2 weeks ago or a year ago or 5 years ago, who am I and what am I and what am I to be and what am I to do? Because we have like gotten into such a deeply ingrained habit of building every moment on what happened before, right? And we look at cumulative stuff versus what the whole is in any given moment, because I can choose to be anything right now. And so like without the tethers of, oh, well, I'll disappoint somebody if I don't do this, right? That's valuing other. It's like the whole thing. If we are limiting ourselves through these tethers, right, then we are holding ourselves down. So many are coming into situations where this has become free, where they've become free of these tethers of these old roles, where they suddenly feel different and see things differently. And sometimes, well, not just sometimes, but often what happens is there's almost like a guilt and a hesitation to really step into that beauty and power and divine light or divine wholeness. I actually like to use divine wholeness, right? Because wholeness is far more encompassing. When I step into divine wholeness, right, and really realize my potential is to do so from that place of inner knowing, inner bliss and inner trust. And not because somebody thinks I should, because culture thinks I should, because I've done it that way before, because I've always done this, or because I've been doing it for X amount of years, or because I've been doing whatever. So when we start taking all that away, and what we're seeing over and over again in the individual perspective is we're having individual shifts that force the tethers to break. So the question then we start asking again is who am I to be, right? So this gives us a huge opportunity. The ego gets a little bit afraid often because and very uncomfortable because it's used to basing all its decisions based on stuff that happened in the past or projecting things that might happen in the future instead of just what is right now. And it's just a new foundation. A friend of mine calls it a new way of grounding. I don't like using the word grounding because people connect that to really like making yourself heavy and whatever. I look at it as, yeah, but I do like it. I like the way she uses it because it's like grounding yourself into a new reality, right? It's really saturating yourself and connecting and committing yourself to this way of, not even new, a remembered way of existing that we haven't existed in a very long time. And it can be a little daunting. I'm going through the same thing. There's a lot of shifting that I'm doing, even with what I do, with what I'm talking about. And I've just I've been focusing on my guidance on, well, okay, so conscious clarity on what is there to be? You know, how do I tweak this in this place where I am already like 95% blissful, like most of the time of what I'm doing? Okay, well, there's 5%. So you can change this and you can tweak it. And where are you today? Like where am I today? And I check in every day. Like, what do I feel? Like, how, you know, what am I being? And is it something that expands my heart or is it something that contracts it? And so there are multiple people that I've talked to for different, like they don't know who to be without those roles that they've had, right? They don't know who to be without the relationship that they had for so long, right? That they were a part of. They don't know. And that includes kids, like being a parent, right? When kids fly the nest or whatever, or relationships that dissolve, or one of the partners dies, or they just dissolve the relationship. Leaving careers. You know, it's interesting as I think back to, I had this conversation yesterday, is I think back to early 2000s when I was working in corporate and I was getting the really strong message, which I didn't even recognize at the time, but I've actually been very good at listening to that voice when it decides to come up over the years, even when I wasn't conscious of it, that said, get out, which made no sense, none, because I had gotten to the position and paycheck that I had always wanted. It was a great position. I had staff. I had, you know, I really liked what I did. I didn't love it. I wasn't blissful about it, but I really liked it. And yet there was stuff in that position that, you know, like I had to play because of senior management and I had to be like Kevlar for my staff. And there was a lot of stress and stuff that took away from the part of the job that I really love to do. And there were a lot of things that were changing, whatever. Anyway, the voice started saying to leave. And I'm like, no, right? Because what does the mind say? No, because look at how much money I'm making. I'm free to do all these things when I'm not working. But the question was, when wasn't I working? Not very much. And so I was, you know, giving myself migraines and headaches and physical issues and all kinds of stuff because I had this friction going on inside of me saying, this isn't who we are anymore. But the mind kept on saying, but I've been doing this for, you know, 17 years. And look at how far I've come and I can go further and blah, blah, blah. And then there's the other voice of the higher self saying, and there's more for us to do. That's not this. And I think, you know, it's funny because some people were like shocked when I decided to just leave. And I didn't get fired. In fact, I had a great job. Like I said, I had a great job, great position, great career. And I was like, yep, time to go, time to do something else. And I did a completely different business for a while. That was all before all this came in. And then, you know, so I literally left corporate and I shifted 3 times before I got here into completely different businesses. And I started, and so now it's been almost 9 years that I'm doing this, and it keeps on evolving and changing. And I do love this, and I'm passionate about it. And yet, there's more, and that's what I'm getting is there's more. There's something more for you to be. And so, you know, the first question is, well, then what is that? And it's for us to sit and listen and pay attention, feel, and how, and many ask me, how do I do that? And it's like, well, listen to your heart. Set yourself any kind of simple meditation, intentional meditation, or energy work that you do on yourself or whatever. Like, doesn't even have to be a particular kind of practice, but set that creation as I have conscious clarity of what there is to be now to fulfill the embodiment of the divine being that I am, to really saturate myself in that fulfillment. And enjoy every moment. Pay attention to what comes up around you. there's a panic that sets in when the ego feels like it doesn't know. But what's really, really cool is that you have, instead of thinking, I don't know, is I have a clean slate. I have an open palette, right? And what will I do with that palette, that clean slate, to create myself to really now be in this version of myself that is right now? And I'm allowed to enjoy it. I'm allowed to be passionate about it. And I'm allowed for it to be the most blissful thing for me to do above anything else, above service to others, above whatever. Because at the end of the day, when we allow ourselves to live in our own bliss and to follow that passion and follow the heart, the universe will take care of us. The money comes, or however way we need to support ourselves will come. And others benefit from it because it infuses everything you do with this vibration, and then it becomes leading by vibration, which I posted about a little bit sometime in the past week. And so when we lead by vibration versus like specifically, well, I'm doing this, so you should do this way because that's the leading way of doing it, or I'm saying this, or, you know, that's how we're so used to doing it. We're following it by very 3D methods. But when we lead by vibration, it's when we actually allow the fulfillment of our own passion, the embodiment of our bliss, and letting that bleed out in a good way, like, you know, bleed out, like emanate out into the dimensions in this world and in this multiverse, because it helps to raise the vibration of everything, because it helps everything remember its own vibration in that sense. And it gives everything else and everyone else permission to be that embodiment and to be that fulfillment. So when you start thinking of it that way, it's like, well, of course that makes so much sense, right? But yet we have to go through all these things in our minds often that tell me, okay, I'm not going to do this. I'm not going to do that, or I have to do this, or this. What will this person think about me, or how will it look if I do this, or whatever. And the thing is, when you stop caring and you really come from this place of love, and people watch you, and they realize, wow, I had someone that I worked with in corporate call me, or actually reach out to me on Facebook, and I think it had been, I want to say, yeah, 5 or 6 years after I had left corporate, and I was starting to do this work. And at that point I was already doing this. And so they sent me a PM. They said, can we do lunch? I said, all right. So yeah, it'd be great to see you. So we met for lunch, and I sat down and was like, how are you doing? And blah, blah, blah. And they said, you know, they had one thing after the other. They had some, you know, like a kind of cancer that had come in, and then all these issues. And it was all this like suffocating energy of holding themselves in these roles that they had allowed themselves to be expected to hold, right? And so, and that's how it was physically manifesting for them, because they wanted to break free of it, but they didn't know how. And this woman said to me, she goes, I want a piece of what you have. And I said, what do you mean? She goes, I don't know what it is you're doing. She goes, you are a completely different person than when I knew you in corporate. And she said, and you are so happy and so at ease with yourself now. And she goes, and I want a piece of that. Like, what do you do? And I said, well, what do you love to do? What do you do that allows you to bring you joy? And she literally said to me, I don't even know anymore. I don't know. And I can't tell you how many people I worked with that said that. So the funny thing is, as we shift into this new timeline, and all that stuff, all those tethers are now getting taken away from us because we've distracted ourselves, finished those lessons, and then after we finished the lessons, a lot of times I hung on because we were distracted because we're afraid of moving beyond that, because that's how we had identified ourselves and valued ourselves before. It's like, okay, so now I'm putting myself in this new place, right? People who I know who've like sold everything and they're traveling the world. I know somebody who did that and spent like 2 years traveling the world before they settled someplace, and had a fabulous, amazing experience. I know others who are doing the same thing. And it's like, do what you're called to do, because it sort of falls in, you know, around you. But then I have like, you know, the questions of, I don't know, like I feel guilty. Like I feel guilty for just doing this for myself. And then also is, I don't know how to just be happy doing things that I love to do, because the ego is telling me I should be doing this, or, who are you to not be taking care of somebody or doing something else, or, doing this kind of job or making this kind of money. And yet they're missing this beautiful, saturated, amazing, like high vibrational life that they're like living in the moment, because they're still getting sort of pulled into that stuff that's like floating away from shore. So if you have that going on in your life, this is something that's really important to look at. Hey, Laurel. A is, let the old timeline go. Let the old stuff go. It's a fresh slate. It doesn't even work anymore. And the more we try to hold on to it and we're reaching out off of shore, these things that are trying to float away from us, the more we're going to lose our footing and fall in, kind of thing. And it will get pulled away from us anyway. So it's a choice. And sometimes it's one of the most challenging things we do, is to just consciously choose without a catalyst that propels us. Because the catalysts that propel us are coming faster and faster if we don't choose to do it on our own, because higher self is like, okay, yeah, we've got new things to create. We've got a whole new timeline, a whole new creation that we're in now. So let's do this and stop distracting ourselves with all this old stuff that just is a weight that's going to make us drown, because it doesn't work. It doesn't even align in the way that it can exist in this new paradigm. And the new paradigm is that whole, allowing the bliss, allowing that fulfillment, and that, and yes, I'm going to say self-centeredness, in the way of all my guidance comes in from in the inside, all my knowledge as actually available to me as part of the divine within me. I don't have to ask somebody else to give it to me. And yet the key is to override the ego that says, oh, I don't know enough, or I could never do that because of this, or I have to wait until this. I have to let, the money situation get to here. I need to do all this first. And it's like, so if you just were quiet in this moment and you listen to your heart, what does your heart tell you to be? And I don't even want to say do, because it's time for us to be. Remember that we are beings and that the doing is secondary. So what am I being right now? Am I being love? Am I being happiness? Am I being blessed? And if I'm not, then what can I do to align myself to be that way? Because I'm worthy of it just as I am. I don't have to do anything to earn it. And by the way, even if we wanted to say like, oh, I do, all that stuff that's floating away from us in that old timeline, that's the stuff we did to get here. We're done. Good job. High fives. So now it's embracing the being and really fulfilling that potential. And play with it. Play with different things. Play with things you haven't tried before that you've always wanted to try. Play with, meeting new people, going new places. Play with just changing things up, because the more we start to consciously allow ourselves to change things up, even little things, changing our patterns and our schedules and the way we do things, that will change the way it'll start to shift us in a way that we can see things differently. And new being is like, how do we exist in a new world, so to speak, or a new multiverse, or the evolved multiverse, in this place that's unencumbered by the tethers that were in the old timelines. So what's really important is to allow that, and to, like I said, to set yourself to have conscious clarity as to what that is. Play with different things. Give yourself and anything that comes up. Something came up yesterday in this random conversation that I got this guidance to reach out to somebody else to make this connection, that I said, hey, I don't know why, but in this conversation, this came up, and I think I was supposed to tell you about this because I need to because maybe this is something you're supposed to do. I don't know. And then the person said, oh my God, I'm breathless, because it sort of came out of left field. And yet, oh my God, this is awesome. But we have to be open to accepting the possibilities of all possibilities, and how that can manifest could be completely different than the mind would ever think. So in this new acceptance of conscious clarity of what we can be, right, is to also accept all possibility of, well, what can I be now? What am I today? What am I being today? And it could be very different from yesterday. What am I shifting myself to be? These are questions to ask ourselves. And again, if you're having problems with like allowing yourself doing that, it has to do with worthiness and saying, well, I have to work to get to this place. I have to do something, I have to suffer, or I have to sacrifice so that I can get to this place. I have to, sacrifice this so that I can get this, instead of I deserve the whole shebang. I deserve for it to all be easy, because we do. And this is what it is. And this new timeline is starting to form. And if we form it from scratch with this whole intention and this creation, it will go this way for all of us. And then everything just shifts like that. So look at that in your life this week. Look at where it is you feel a little lost. If things have really changed for you or are changing, instead of looking at the fear of like not knowing who you are, instead saying, well, what does that look like? If I feel into who can I be now without those tethers, what are my possibilities? What does that look like? What does that feel like? And start to allow that to be created in your reality, even if you don't know consciously what it is yet. So play with that this week, and we'll see you next time. This is Angela Coulter bringing you this week's Living the Shift. Have a good one.